Black Male Spirituality, back again with another message. As always, I want to shout out all my high vibrational, high value brothers. Also want to send love to all the lovely high vibrational ladies who may be listening. So, passport bros, there is no cheat code. Now, before I get into the meat of this message, there's a few things I want to say up front. The most important thing is that this video is not meant to be an attack on people who find wives in other countries, who date outside their race. Nothing like that. In fact, I have a good friend who I know pretty well who found his current wife in Thailand, and for him, it seems to have worked out. There's also one or two content creators that I respect who identify as passport bros. But on my channel, as you know, my aim is to sharpen my brothers just like iron sharpens iron. I also want to tell the truth as I see it from both a practical and spiritual perspective. So that is the point of this video. Now, at a base level, I think it's interesting. I see a lot of parallels between the passport bros and the divestors. You know, the divestors have concluded that they have to date men in other races because all black men are no good. Interestingly, passport bros, in my mind, have gone actually quite a bit further. They've concluded that they have to pay a lot of money, take a lot of time to travel to other countries because American women, particularly black women, are no good. Aside from both of those concepts being the furthest thing from the truth, as good black men and good black women get together all the time, I think the issue is that you're coming from a place of negativity. Now, to kind of go back to how this is a false concept, we all remember how Kevin Samuels, he talked a little bit about traveling, but he also had a lot of success bringing good black men and good black women together on his Facebook group. He would talk about that all the time, especially addressing his critics and detractors. So, on the negativity part, you know, I think a significant portion of this passport phenomenon, just like the divestor movement, I think comes from a place of very negative, low vibrational energy. And it's understandable. I mean, a lot of guys have had horror stories with women and even black women in particular, unfortunately. But that kind of negativity is not a recipe for attracting positivity into your life. It doesn't matter if you're in America or in another country. The law of attraction works the same way in every country. And if you're negative about women or about whatever it is you're pursuing, that is all you will see is negative. I mean, you could go to another planet. You can go to the moon. It all works the same way in this universe. Another thing that's kind of interesting, you know, for me, you know, when, you know, looking at these passport bros is that, you know, sometimes I wonder the answers I would get if I were to ask these passport bros, especially these younger passport bros, you know, if they've actually done the work to heal from the negative experiences they've had with women. Whether or not they still choose to go overseas or not, that would be something important that I'd want them to think about. You know, have you gotten therapy? Have you talked through the traumas you've experienced? Because, you know, I'll grant you may have had some bad experiences with black women or American women, but have you done the work? Because, you know, if you're not healed, you will either attract or gravitate toward the wrong women. Again, American, Colombian, Thai women, whatever. You know, you'll attract the wrong women, or you may have come across a decent one, but ultimately push her away because in your negativity, you won't see her good. You'll think, oh, she's just like all these other hypergamous 304s or all these other negative women. When the truth of the matter is that she isn't. She actually is a decent one. Another point that I think is kind of interesting with these passport bros is that how many of them are young men in their 20s or maybe even their 30s who really haven't experienced life yet. You know, they haven't experienced life. They haven't had a whole lot of experience, but they're ready to give up on American women or black women. when they haven't really even dated any. And some of them, I would venture to guess, are still virgins. Some of them, not all. For me, I understand more someone like a Dennis Sperling or like my friend. And shout out to Uncle D real quick. I can understand where an older man does the passport things. Dennis Sperling, he's been married. I think he's been married to black women before, and he's had a family and sons, and he's had a whole professional career outside of YouTube. But, I think so many of these passport guys, or at least some, maybe not even most, they're young 20-year-olds who have a lot of things to work on and have a lot of things to build and work towards. And they're really not in the position where they should be spending inordinate amount of money just to chase women in other countries. I understand what it is to be a frustrated young man in your 20s. You're just now getting used to dating women. Maybe you haven't been in a relationship yet. And, while you may be studying, you're not where you want to be yet. And, when I look back, for me, it's not that women were the problem or they didn't want to give me a chance. It was the fact that I had a lot of maturing and growing to do, which I have since been able to gain that growth and maturity. Something else that's interesting to me, and I think I touched on a little bit of this in the beginning, is that, there's a lot of passport bros that aren't even finding wives or starting families. They're just casually interacting and hooking up with women. It's funny how you talk about how you need a submissive woman, cook, clean, will do what you say, won't be difficult. But what does that matter if you're just hooking up with them while you're spending a week or two in a country or a couple of days in another country? It's not like you're staying in touch and actually bringing them to the country. It's something that Ringo TV's pointed out. None of these guys, or a lot of these guys, aren't bringing back wives. They aren't actually finding people. So what's the point? That kind of brings me to my next point. The big elephant in the room with some of these passport guys is that, a lot of content creators have exposed the fact that these guys are just paying for foreign sex workers, essentially. So, of course a woman's going to be submissive if you pay her money. But that submission is not real. It's not coming from an honest, true place. For instance, this one young man who's been gaining a lot of traction recently, when he was on Jason Black's channel, he admitted to paying for sex twice when he was in Colombia. Now, keep in mind, these women in other countries like Colombia or Brazil or even Thailand, there are a lot of women who, one, they're living in a developing country, and two, that a lot of them are in abject poverty, at least as compared to American standards of living. So, of course, they may have sex, they may act out the girlfriend experience, for a relatively small amount of money. And these guys are going for that. It's kind of interesting because, we hear a lot about tricking in this sector of YouTube. And, I think in a lot of cases, these passport guys are tricking. They're going to other countries where it doesn't cost as much to trick, essentially. Now, getting into the spiritual, which is really the meat of what I want to focus on in this video, I think a lot of brothers, just like a lot of sisters, are trying to find a cheat code to get around having to exercise discernment in dating, especially exercising spiritual discernment in dating. And I'm here to tell you that there is no cheat code. No matter where you are or who you're talking to, you have to exercise discernment. You have to pay attention to the little things and really be attuned to the red flags and even the green flags, into potential negativity, as well as being able to identify the positive. Otherwise, you may end up like some of the passport guys who walk away with horror stories. You think about the guys who've been drugged and set up to be robbed, and this is by supposedly more submissive women and a supposedly better culture. They're going around drugging men. You have to keep in mind that as a black man, especially as an American man, you really need to be careful going overseas. Things happen to our people all the time when they go overseas or south of the border here in the U.S. Shanquella Robinson is a big example that I've already talked about. That was a woman. And you especially have to be careful because, if you don't know the language or culture, you can miss a lot of potential red flags. Or it could be more hard to identify the good signs. My friend who I mentioned earlier, when he was international dating before he met his current wife, he came across women in other countries. He was mostly East Asia, Thailand, Korea, places like that. He dealt with women with bizarre obsessions, like this woman who was like a super fan of this gay couple that were porn stars. He dealt with one woman who was divorced. Again, this is supposedly more submissive Thai woman who was divorced from her husband, and on top of that had a bad little kid. And, it just seems like there's stuff going on even overseas from stories like that and others I've heard, where you're dealing with pretty much the same that you're dealing with here in the U.S., maybe to a different degree with certain women, but it's still there. You still have to exercise your discernment. I think a lot of times we forget that the West has impacted this entire world. The United States, Europe, our culture has gone everywhere. Feminism's gone everywhere. Other left or woke ideas have gone to other countries. Again, it may be to a different degree, but it's still there. It's still present. And I think as time goes on, our influence will continue to expand, and a lot of the cultures which are currently changing even now, will continue to change even more. At the end of my videos, I always say low vibrations are at an all-time high. And I do that to emphasize to everyone that low vibrations, negativity are all around us. It doesn't matter if you're in America or in another country. And I think people, for instance, people who are Christians understand that sin has infected this entire world. If you're a Muslim, I think you would similarly see how haram has affected the entire world. The forbidden activities have infected the entire world. I think most faith traditions, or even secular traditions, recognize that in some shape or form, negativity is no respecter of persons. It's just like illness and disease. It doesn't matter if you're white, you're black, you're from America, you're from Thailand, you're from Colombia, you're from Brazil. It doesn't matter. It has affected every person all over the world. As such, again, I bring it back to discernment. As a black man, it is so important, as any man, as any person, it's so important that you have to keep that in mind and be discerning and selective. This may mean you may not get as many women giving you attention, hooking up with you. It may mean that you have to wait a longer period to find the correct woman, the right woman, or multiple women if you're into that. It'll take time. They say that anyone worth having or anything worth having won't be easy to obtain. It won't be easy to identify and select them out. But that's part of the reason why they're worth having. Bottom line is, a passport is not a cheat code in dating and relationships or anything else. Keep that in mind. Keep your discernment on. Recognize that there's no getting around that. At any rate, I want to thank everyone for listening to this message, and I hope my brothers have received it in the positive spirit that I'm trying to bring. If you support this message, please like this video, share it, and consider becoming a part of Black Male Spirituality. And remember, brothers, low vibrations are at an all-time high in every country. Stay high vibrational. Namaste, my friends.